Hi Krishna everybody. My name is Krshna Dulal Das. I'd like to welcome you to our program here at Sunday Feast at ISKCON Ottawa. You have made it to the residence of our Lordship Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jaya. Perhaps before I go on any further, might I ask, is there anybody here coming for the first time? Hi Krishna, welcome, welcome. You're both also for the first time as well? Okay, Hare Krishna. How did you find out about this place? Did you have a friend that told you that we have a little temple here on the side, or did you look it up online, or?
We saw our third time, but we are attending the Kirtan.
Kirtan first time. first time? Third time here. Okay, great. All right. So something about it you like, because you're back not the second time, but third time. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, Hare Krishna. I'd also like to acknowledge we have some devotees that I'm sure are joining online as well. So I'm just going to squeeze by and say Hare Krishna. Sometimes I forget to acknowledge them, but they're there. So Dina Gauranga Prabhu, Hare Krishna, welcome. Jaya Prabhu, Hare Krishna, welcome. Ajaya Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Madalila Mohini, Hare Krishna, welcome. Adashila, Hare Krishna, and Shreyas Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So we'll continue. We'll chant Jaya Radha Madhava, and we'll read something from Bhagavad Gita, and then we'll conclude our program with some more Kirtan, and then Prashadam, which is food that has been offered to the Lord. We'll share that together. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. We have a kids program, so children, please welcome downstairs. There will be separate, interesting program for the kids. And yeah, if I can ask everybody to come a bit closer, to move a bit, so we expect more guests, so it's more comfortable for them. Just a little bit more, so we'll get better connection with the speaker.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srila Prabhupada ki
Jaya.
So we're reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 34. Chapter 3, text 34. Those of you who want to follow along. Bhagavad Gita as it is, by the way. Right? That's the one. Thank you. First line's a mouthful. Indriyasyendriyasyarte ragadvesho vyavastito tayorna vasham agachet tauhyasya paripantinao. We do the word for word together. Indriyasya,
Indriyasya,
of the senses.
of the senses.
Indriyasya arte,
Indriyasya arte,
in the sense objects.
in the sense object.
Raga,
Raga,
attachment.
attachment.
Dvesho,
Vesha,
also detachment.
also attachment.
Vyavastito,
Vyavastita,
put under regulations.
put under regulations.
Tayo,
Tayo,
of them.
of them.
Na,
Na,
never.
never.
Vasham,
Vasham,
control.
control.
Agachet,
Agachet,
one should come.
one should come.
Tau,
Tau,
those.
those.
He,
He,
certainly.
certainly.
Asya,
Asya,
his.
his.
Paripantinao,
Paripantinao,
stumbling blocks.
stumbling block.
Translation. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Purport. Those who are in Krishna consciousness are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratification. But those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement. Sorry, that's a new word. Is the cause of material engagement. But one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scripture does not become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to the scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any women other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities are to be curbed. Otherwise, they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations. And yet, we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations, unattached to them, because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray. As much as there is always the chance of an accident, even on the royal roads. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time, owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness, or acting always in the loving service of Krishna, detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on a platform of Krishna consciousness. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnanam Vishalakya Chakshuramitam Tasmai Shri Nahata Prayasana Prabhupada Tuste Sankita Praviti Pratayate Shurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Yajasesha Srinivadi Paschatya Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'll read this translation again quickly. So Krishna is saying there are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. And then we have the purport. So, I'll start off with asking if there's some feedback. What did you think? So we heard from Prabhupada here. He's talking about something, sense enjoyment, objects, sex life, things like this, rules and regulations. What did you get? What struck a chord, right? This is one of those verses that's like really getting down into the nitty-gritty of things. It's like, well, okay, we're talking about sex life here, right? This is what the society is all about these days, these activities that we do. It's just so we could have a better facilities for sense enjoyment. Essentially, that's what it means. Sex life means sense gratification. It's a life of materialism, right? This is the most gross example of this, right, given in this verse. Then it talks something about rules and regulations and trying to practice some restraint, having a little bit of a license. So I wanted to throw it out there. So this is your chance to say something. What do you think? What do you think? Do you know this verse? Have you ever read this verse before? Any thoughts? Priyam's getting fired up here. You ready? You're sitting at the front of the crowd. What do you think?
I mean, like, it's so hard to say due to our surroundings and bad company. Sometimes we agree to be in. Leads to that kind of thinking that this is the only thing we're supposed to do, like animals, like Prabhupada mentioned, having sex, eating food. I feel like sense gratification it's not only about sex, it's also about the tongue. Like, for example, I'm suffering from sugar. I am very much attracted to sugar. I cannot control myself. So it's same thing goes for alcohol, tea, coffee, even the woman or opposite sex when you feel attracted. It's I know it's so hard. It's in us. Like it's next to impossible to finish it, but we can still do it with some rules and regulations in a proper manner that Prabhupada mentioned. Like you can have sex for reproducing Krishna conscious children. That could be the right way of doing it. Like because if you say a stranger that you should not do sex, he will be like, okay, then why did God gave us that feelings, that hard ones, or that kind of organs? So that is because Krishna wants us to reproduce more Krishna conscious children so that we can spread the knowledge around the world. So in that way we can use this as a positive manner. But to control, I would say just chant the holy name, be in the association. That's how you can control. I'm the perfect example. If I don't come to temple 2 weeks, I might fall in that kind of things again. But if I come to association, and then again a boost coming on, okay, I need to follow this and that. So we should always come to temple.
Thank you very much. Oh, so I have another. Sorry, Prabhu.
So I think we can either operate with our biology or with our intelligence. So being humans and animals, the basic difference is that they don't have that intelligence. We do. We can differentiate. So that is something we can do. And yeah, and like I think it's about self-control and discipline. If you are determined, I don't think anything can come in between, be it anything. I think that's also one thing, and yeah, I think that's about it.
Really? You think that if you're determined, nothing can come in between?
Like, if you have, if your focus is really or at the correct place, I think it comes with a lot of discipline. Like, if you have a disciplined life, I think at least you will be better than the rest of the crowd.
So when you say discipline, are you referring to, just telling yourself that I have to do this, I have a goal and I have to fix this? Or when you're saying discipline, are you referring to like association?
So we make New Year's resolutions, but we don't really follow through them. So that's not discipline. That's when you say, oh, I need to do it. It's just like telling yourself to bring yourself back. So motivation can only lead you to choose, but the only way you can sustain it and maintain it is through practice and being like self-disciplined. I think that's important.
Thank you very much, Krishna. Any other thoughts? Oh, Alex? Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have a lot to say on that. Maybe a lot of us don't want to talk about it, though. It's kind of still kind of a taboo in society. We had, in religious circles growing up, they would say, I remember I did a test in high school once. It was like a sex ed class. And the last question on the test was, what's the best method of contraceptive? And then there was like, all of them, like A condom, B, blah, blah. There was like all of them. No, actually, I'm wrong. Actually, every single answer was abstinence. I remember now. It was A, B, C, D, abstinence for each one of them. And I remember thinking that was just like the stupidest thing ever. And I added another answer, condom, at the end there. But it just goes to show the kind of thinking that we have in this society. And I spent my whole young adulthood thinking that was stupid, but now I kind of understand what they were trying to get at. But anyways, all I'm gonna say is I spent, ever since I started to have hormone and puberty and all of that, the attraction, the sex desire has been, like it said, an engagement, has been controlling and has been a source of suffering and feeling like I'm not in control ever since I got on the spiritual path. But ever since I've been practicing yoga, bhakti yoga, especially taking it really seriously, and when she said discipline, to me discipline is you know what you need to do and you do it every day. And you don't need to do a lot every day, but you do it every day. You do a little bit, you start with a little bit of chanting and reading every day, and then you increase. And you just stay alive in Krishna consciousness. We were talking about that this morning. All you need to do is you stay alive in Krishna consciousness, and by that it means you keep doing it regularly. And I can only speak for myself, but I've felt a lot of purification happen. The sex desire is a lot less strong than it used to be. And now I see it as something that I don't even want at all. And I never thought I could ever say this in my life. So I guess this is just like a word of encouragement that this this Krishna consciousness actually really works. So keep at it, everyone. Hare Krishna.
All right, thank you, Krishna. Please, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So once upon a time, I was reading one book and listening some of the lesson from the Bhagavatam. So that was in my native language, and I heard one of the thing from that, sex is not a bad thing until you are using that sense for the getting your children's or for increasing your future generation, and just make it limited to your future part or your partner. So once you do it with everything, with everyone just like that, so then you are not the devotee, you are just Danav. Yeah, this kind of the like.
What's a dano?
Dano, it means like the opposite.
Demon,
of
demon,
devotee.
demon.
Oh, demon.
Demon.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you wanna be like, yes. So like if you wanna be a loving child of your God, just be a devotee, just like that way, just making all the things in the like one way, and like the like if God gives us something, then like He puts some rules or regulation also, so that are conveyed by our like the gurus and everyone. So we need to follow those. And like the same as like we also know that like one of the biggest devotee of this Lord Krishna is Narasimha. And we heard a lot many stories of that, like God even like by himself they came into their home and everything. So like he also has a family, he also has a kid. So like, so if you wanna do this sex thing for your like future generation, then like you can still be a good person and good devotee of the God. So like we need to go by this way. We need to just follow something. This way. We don't need to be like so chill, so calm. Right now, like our generation is become this much chill, calm, and like they don't give like focus on some of the rules, regulation of like this spiritual life and everything. They just like, oh, we are youngster, we can do anything. You don't know anything. You are just being a fool in just like accepting lot many things from the bad association. So like yeah, if you want to be in control, so association is the first key. And second is like if you association is not working to you properly, just do one thing that I followed in my life to control my mind and everything, just like chanting a God name. So like once you do more and more and more and more, you will realize that you got some control in your senses, in everything. You will be in a stable in any kind of the dirty situation around to you. So that's I learned from that.
Thank you for sharing. I just,
I just want to add one thing.
yes.
So reproduction has like, there is pain associated with it, right? So anything that you go through with the pain, I think the whole purpose of the pleasure comes from sex is because we also have to go through the pain. It's quite a lot. So when we consume our mind with that pleasure only and we do it with multiple people, it does not make sense. So the reason of the pleasure is because of the pain of the reproduction. So that's why that's there. So I think a lot of people just needs to understand that that's just not the pleasure you want in life. There are other things.
Thank you. So let's have a look at the Vedic perspective here, okay? So it talks about rules and regulations, and really the purpose, as far as in our Vaishnava culture, is there's two things. There's two prohibitions that we should remember. We should never forget Krishna, and we should always remember Krishna. This is what all of these rules and regulations that we follow, that are put there, that are suggested in like Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotions, that is being spoken about in the Bhagavad Gita, that we're learning from our teachers, acharyas, is to help us maintain a discipline, right? To help us maintain an attachment, right, to bhakti yoga, to performing devotional service. Because there are really two realities, right? Those two realities is that there's Krishna, who's there, and there's the jiva, the soul, right? And the soul can be engaged in only two types of nature, right, that are there. There's a material nature, right, and spiritual nature. Material activities and spiritual activities. And the material activities, when we're performing material activities for our own sense gratification, right, then yes, that usually is accompanied by pain, right? There's pain and suffering, and it brings us further away from Krishna, right? And the opposite, when we perform activities, devotional service, and we try to do things for the pleasure of the Lord, right, then that brings us satisfaction also, right? It's all both about relationships, right? I can either have a relationship with material nature, right, and be exploitative, or you can have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what stuck out to me the most is I was looking at the rules and regulations in connection to etiquette, right? Vaishnava etiquette, specifically. Manners, right? You have etiquette in different cultures, you could see, in some cultures, what's an etiquette. Like, I heard that after you eat a meal, it's very polite that you should burp afterwards, right? And everybody, oh yes, that means that they're really, they really enjoyed the meal, right? Or I think in Japan there's a custom that when you eat your soup, you should be slurping your soup like this, right? And in the West, when we look at that, it's like, right, you're not supposed to. That's rude, right? So what else is there? Please and thank you. That's a common thing, right? You go to many people. That's how you get things done. Please and thank you. But then if you go, I've heard in India in some places, when you say thank you, it's like considered offensive sometimes. Because it's like, I did a good deed, right? And you're thanking me for this, like, obviously, Hare Krishna, so you say Hare Krishna, right? And shaking hands, that's another thing. Sometimes people come and look, shaking hands, what is this, Devotees, when they meet each other, they fold their palms. Although, there is a reference in the Srimad Bhagavatam of Lord Brahma shaking Lord Vishnu's hand. So it's scriptural, it's there, I think in the first canto. Right? We were reading it one time and I'm like, wow, he did shake the Lord's hand, right? When he saw it. Right? So if somebody tells you, no, we don't shake hands, it's, well, Lord Brahma did it, right, at some point. But generally the custom is that we fold our palms and we say Hare Krishna or Namaste, depending on the circumstances. So I wanted to start off with a little story. So once there was this king, and he was a very pious king. He was like, everybody liked him, and he was very gentle. He cared about everybody in his community, and but he had this problem that he couldn't get anybody to do anything. Right? He would ask them, could you do this? Could you take out the garbage? They wouldn't listen. Right? And he was having a really hard time, and he went through the ordeal of trying to find a wizard. He found somebody to come into his court, and this wizard was really skilled. He could make a snail that's fighting, right? An ant that could pick anything up, right, and do things. So it's really extraordinary. And so this wizard, he tried to help the king, right, to see if he had some spells or some mantras that he could learn so he could get people to do things, right? So he could connect with them. And finally there was a young man that was in the court, and he came and saw the king, and he said, I have a couple of spells that I've learned that I could show you. And so he wrote it down on a parchment paper, on a scroll, he gave it to the king, and the king looked at it, these different mantras, and he was studying it, he was repeating it all the time in his mind. And this boy told him that this thing, when you use these words, you'll see, the first one when you start, you ask somebody something, they're gonna probably do it. And when they finished, there's another word that you can say, and you'll know that it worked by the fact that they're going to have a smile on their face also, right? And he's thinking, oh, that's great. So he went and he tried. He saw, Antonio was in his courtyard. He was coming and he had a nice bird that he was carrying. And he said, Antonio, that's a really nice bird. Antonio, could you please come here? And Antonio said, oh, he used some word, please, right? And Antonio came up to him, and he said, okay, the king was looking at the bird, and then the king said, well, thank you very much, thank you. And then Antonio smiled, and he went away. And he was thinking, wow, this is magic, right? I didn't know, right? He found these things out, and he wanted to really thank this boy, right? Because he never knew about these mantras, that this is something that would work. And before he left the kingdom, the king asked him, he said, how did you learn this? Where did you learn this? He said, oh, when I was growing up, I went to this school and my teachers taught me, and it worked, right? And that was, a little anecdote, right? So this is an example of manners, right? So this worked, right? This was helping with the relationships within the community. Within his community, he was having some struggles. And so as far as our Vedic culture here is concerned, our devotional community culture, Vaishnava means somebody who is worshipping Vishnu, right? Or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada qualifies that. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also known by many names. God, right? Allah, right? And so anybody who is serving or worshipping the Lord, right? Even Prabhupada at some point says anybody who chants the holy names of the Lord is considered a Vaishnava, right? This is a Vaishnava, right? And etiquette is is the way of performing activities, right? Doing some kind of activities, right? So an etiquette is, let's say, when you finish your soup, you don't burp, or you don't, or whatever it is, right? Depending on your circumstances, wherever you are, this is a custom. This is a way of appreciating. This is a way of showing gratitude, right? This is a way of showing respect. This is a way of becoming closer in terms of our relationships with others. So this is Vaishnava etiquette, right? Etiquette, specifically activities meant to be serving the Lord, right? How we do them, what kind of activities we do. And those activities are supposed to help us, these rules and regulations, to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So, yeah, I've got some type of, we were reading about this also this past week, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, because there was a thing about etiquette, which was, the whole thing about Daksha Prajapati, right, and Lord Shiva, how there was an etiquette seemingly that happened that Daksha Prajapati came into the sacrificial arena, and his son-in-law, right, which was Shiva, he was there, and he didn't offer his obeisances to Daksha Prajapati. And he got so upset, and started to hurl ninja stars and offenses and stuff like this. And it went towards Lord Shiva, and then kind of missed him, and I guess came back at him because he suffered some backlash after that. Bhakti Marg Maharaj was saying this once he had this experience, in Toronto. He was in his office, and somebody came into the office and started, to yell at Maharaj, right, about something, complain something, and Maharaj was saying, I just kind of moved out of the way, right, and it seemed to like hit the wall and bounce back and hit the person, and as soon as it hit them, they're like, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, I don't know what got over me, why I was behaving in such a way, right? So sometimes we get in the heat of the moment, right? And this is kind of what happened with Daksha Prajapati and Lord Shiva. And he took it, it wasn't for the purpose of trying to worship the Lord, his behavior, his spirit. It was about, sense of false prestige. He was thinking that he is a very important person and he deserved respect. So this etiquette was really kind of put out of context. But then later, after, the whole saga happened in the sacrificial arena, right? And Daksha got cursed, and he got a goat head, and the Brahmanas got also cursed, right? And the counter cursing was happening. Lord Brahman and the demigods, they wanted to go and ask Shiva for forgiveness. So they went, they traveled, and in the Bhagavatam it explains through forests and valleys, and they went to Kailash, right, Mount Kailash, and they saw Lord Shiva there. And Lord Brahma, right, as he was approaching, he knew it's like, we did a really bad thing, this was not good, right? So he knew, and he was guiding the devotees who were coming with him, that we need to apologize, we need to beg for forgiveness. But the thing with Lord Shiva is that, Lord Shiva can very easily become angered, right? So he could really lose his chill either, but he's also very easily pleased, right? So that's the qualities again of a Vaishnava. And so, as Brahma was approaching the mountain, he was coming there, Lord Shiva saw him. And, on the cosmic scale, Lord Shiva is, in a higher position, right? He doesn't have to necessarily be offering respects or offering obeisances or anything like this. But when he saw Lord Brahma coming up the valley, he got off from under the banyan tree and went to Lord Brahma and touched his feet, offered his obeisances, and was happy to see him, right? And you can imagine, right, that, Lord Shiva is just, his wife just burned up in a fire, right, because of the offenses committed by the devotees. Can you imagine, like, how angry you would be, like, if, she was an innocent person, she was there, right, and these offenses were hurled, and she was insulted, and, she ended up leaving her body, right, because she had no other resort to go to, and, but still, Lord Shiva, he went and he offered his respects to Lord Brahma. Now also, Lord Shiva is the son of Lord Brahma also, and so he went and he offered his respects because that was fitting, the proper way to do, but the Lord showed us by his example, right? Lord Shiva showed us by example that this is Vaishnava etiquette. This is the way that we should conduct ourselves when we're with the Vaishnavas. Another example is, on the Battle of Kurukshetra, right? The war was happening, every day there was big battles that were happening. But at the end of the night, what would happen, right? They would go to the other side, they would sit by the campfire, right? They offered respects to the teachers, and then, they performed their duty, right? They would continue to fight the next day. But this is real Vaishnava etiquette. This is real culture, right? So, actually, Sanatana Goswami, he was he was instructed by Lord Chaitanya to actually compile some literature on Vaishnava etiquette. So he compiled this Hari Bhakti Vilas, right? And which is a book which is giving many, many rules and regulations which are describing the different moods and the different understandings which should be derived from the several different recommendations and steps along the path of devotional service. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually instructed him. He said, whatever you want to do, you will be able to do correctly by Lord Krishna's favor. Because Sanatana Goswami came up to him and he said, I can't write this stuff. This is like elevated things. I'm a lowly born person. Why are you asking me to do this? And Lord Chaitanya, his teacher, he instructed him. He says, whatever you want to do, you will be able to do correctly by Lord Krishna's favor. He will manifest the real purport because you asked me for a synopsis. Please hear these few indications. In the beginning, he starts off, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Right? So this is also very big, within our culture. This is actually the way that we learn. This is the process for self-realization. If you want to become self-realized, right? This is the process for performing devotional service. And if we do that, right, if we do this in the mode of service, serving the Vaishnavas, listening, following the instructions, applying the things that we're reading, that we're learning, then we get a backing of our acharyas, of our teachers that are there. Actually, it's interesting, I was reading the other day, or listening to a lecture. I was with my Guru Maharaj a couple of years ago, and he was giving a talk to newcomers, right, that came, and the question came up. He was asking, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? It was the contents of the Gita summarized. They were reading this chapter. And he was asking, have you read the Gita? Have you read the Gita? Where are you with the Gita? He just wanted to get an idea of where everybody was in the room. There's maybe about 7, 8 people that were there. And they said yes. And then Maharaj was asking, have you read Bhagavad Gita as it is? Right? And then one other person asked, what's the difference between Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Gita as it is? Right? And Maharaj says, well, that's a good question that we could give a long answer, right? He said you could spend a lot of time discussing about this. But he essentially was saying that people can write. He said that he's himself read different Gitas, kind of out of self-interest at some point, right? And this is the version of the Bhagavad Gita that really jumped out at him, right? That really made a difference. And he describes that there's 2 types of knowledge, right? There's jnana, right, which is knowledge, theoretical knowledge, and vijnana, right, which is realized knowledge, right? So he was saying how the beauty about Bhagavad Gita as it is that Srila Prabhupada is representing what was being presented by Krishna. And Krishna says in the 2nd chapter, he says, I'm the absolute truth, right? And Maharaj was saying, wow, can you imagine seeing that in a book somewhere? The Lord suddenly said, here it is, this is the absolute truth right here. And so Prabhupada, he goes on pretty much giving us access to the Bhagavad Gita, to the words that are given by Krishna, because he has realized the knowledge, because he's practicing it, because he's a bhakti yogi, right? He practices everything that is spoken by Krishna and is applying it to his life. And as was given to him by his teacher and his teacher. This is Vaishnava etiquette, this is Vaishnava culture, this is the process that has been given. So I thought that was really nice that he was talking about this. And so when we talk, let's say, about Vaishnava etiquette, I wanted to kind of mention this because Prabhupada very often, when people would come like, for the first time, or they've been coming, for maybe, in the older days, it was, a couple of weeks, right? They were already initiated, right? Full tilak, clothing and everything, right? But people would come and he would give them access to the holy name, right? And they could experience, you know, the association of the devotees, right? And they get hooked, right? Just by this association, right? This pure purity of Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas that were present. But then after they started coming, you know, for a while, he started to make them aware about the different rules and regulations, right? Because they started to inquire, okay, how can I, you know, improve, right? How can I, you know, imbibe this process a little bit more, jump in more, right? And Prabhupada would provide some of these rules and regulations. He would teach devotees about etiquette. And I read this last week when we were talking about this. This is a presentation by Bhakti Chara Maharaj, and he talks a little bit about Vaishnava etiquette. And I was going to just read it. And he was saying, first of all, again, Vaishnava, he was talking, is really characterized by this third verse of Shikshastakam, which is saying that, you know, that one should be tolerant than the tree, more humble than the blade of grass, be ready to offer all respects to others, be devoid of all sense of false prestige, and in such a state of mind and such a spirit, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. And Bhakti Chara Maharaj was saying how Prabhupada was really this like humility, this Vaishnava, this servant of, you know, the servant. And he gave an example, which is pretty funny. He was saying once, you know, in the temple, there was this initiation ceremony that was supposed to take place. It was a fire sacrifice, and devotees were supposed to go get, you know, fruit and put it on the yagya. And there was one newer devotee who was coming into the temple, and he was, you know, around these other devotees, and very often, you know, he would, you know, when he would come with a problem, or he see somebody would have a problem, one of their seniors would say, you know, don't worry about it, just chant Hare Krishna, okay? And so he saw that Prabhupada was there in the temple room, and things weren't coming together. And Prabhupada was a little bit stern. He's saying, you know, where are the fruits? You know, we need to come and put this together. So this devotee came up to Srila Prabhupada, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, why don't you just chant Hare Krishna, right? And Bhakti Chara Maharaj said that Prabhupada, as soon as he saw this, he just went to his bead bag and started to chant Hare Krishna, right? The humility, you know. Bhakti Chara Maharaj was just blown away by this, you know, he was saying. And he gives some other examples as well. But then about this etiquette, Prabhupada used to say this. He said, just like when a policeman is wearing the uniform, you know that he's a policeman. And if you are in difficulty, you approach a policeman. Similarly, when you want spiritual guidance, you can see a Vaishnava. Therefore, the Vaishnava have to identify themselves in a proper way. So make it a point to present you as Vaishnavas. Are you proud to be Vaishnavas? Once again, thank you very much. So become it. It's actually an honor, it's a glory, it's a pride to become a Vaishnava. It's a privilege to become a Vaishnava. Can you imagine who is Vaishnava? Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava, Brahma is a Vaishnava, Narada is a Vaishnava, Prahlad Maharaj is a Vaishnava, Bali Maharaj is a Vaishnava, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he just does the whole list of all the Vaishnavas in our lineage. And what a privilege is to be in this sampradaya and have the association of such wonderful Vaishnavas. And then he was talking a little bit about the dress code. So about devotees, he said, I remember when I was a new devotee, I was asking one devotee, Tirthapad Prabhu, who was kind of my mentor. He was like my elder brother. He was very, very caring. I was sharing the room with him, and he was very loving, very caring. And he gave a very wonderful explanation of why we shouldn't wear trousers in the temple, he said. He told me that the trouser rubs the inner part of our thigh, which causes sexual agitation. And I immediately could see that the dhoti was so soft and so easy to wear. I mean, so much nicer feeling is it to the body, dhoti and kurta. So everything that we do is scientific, has a scientific basis. So wearing trousers causes sexual agitation. And the goal of the human life is to conquer sex desires, to overcome sex desires, because this material nature is a prison house of sex desires. As long as we have sex desires, we are going to be bound to this material nature. If we want to get out of this material nature, if we want to become free from the bondage of this material nature, we have to overcome this. There is no other way. So Maharaj is saying, anyway, therefore dress code is also important. The way we dress ourselves is important. So Mataji's, ladies, please wear saris, he's saying. Nowadays I notice in India also women are not wearing saris. They're wearing jeans, they're wearing trousers. Sometimes it becomes difficult to figure out who is a man and who is a woman. They're wearing jeans, they're wearing salwar kameez, is that right? Salwar kameez?
Yeah, salwar kameez.
Okay. But a sari is so graceful. It is so nice to wear saris. They look so beautiful. Women look so beautiful in them, and it covers them. So this is how the Vaishnavas have the perfect system, Maharaj is saying, the perfect arrangement, the perfect way of life. So it is important that all the devotees of ISKCON wear tilak. Will you make it a point to wear tilak? I'm seeing many of you forgot to put on tilak today, although you came to the program. One thing I can tell you, Prabhupada used to be very, very upset when he saw that we didn't have tilak. So make it a point to wear tilak. There is no need to hide your identity. You rather feel proud of your identity that you're a Vaishnava, Maharaj is saying. Can you imagine the early days when there was just a handful of devotees, but still they wore? That is how the commitment and conviction was to Krishna consciousness. Also, many of you are working, so probably you cannot keep shaved head, but please make it a point to keep a sika. Those who are initiated and those who want to become initiated, make it a point to wear sika. Ladies can have long hair, but temple devotees should have shaved head. So these are our uniforms. When people used to ask Prabhupada, why do that? And this is when he gave the example of a policeman, right? And you know, the uniforms. This is the way that we do it. And essentially, that is our concern, right? We're not trying to do new fads. We're Prabhupada-nugas, right? We're trying to follow in, you know, even Vedas, Vedic culture. It's very broad. There's so much in it, right? You know, our really main concern is follow our spiritual master, right? Follow the instructions of the acharyas. Follow the instructions of these wonderful Vaishnavas, right? Who show us by example. Yad yad yacharati shrastas. It's this verse in the Bhagavad Gita that, you know, a proper leader or a teacher teaches by example, right? So we need to do that. We have this responsibility, Maharaj is saying. So, but with that being said, I just wanted to add one thing, you know. This is a matter of a heart also, right? So I'm saying that this is something that Prabhupada wanted, this is something that the devotees speak about, but this does not give us a platform to suddenly start to judge, you know, people in the temple, hey, you're not wearing pants, or you're, you know, why are you dressed a little bit funny, right? This is something that, it's an opportunity for us to individually take to heart, right, when we do that. And Bhakta Alex mentioned a really nice thing last time. He said, I really like that, it's so nice. And he kind of could relate with it. And what did you say? You said that, yeah, it's so nice. It's like we go to a special place, right, to a special function. Krshna Dulal Prabhu was telling me that in one of the churches, right, where he used to go to, he said, they were so strict on dress code. He said a lady would come in, and if she would be wearing pants, they'd to quickly get her to raise up her hands, and they would throw a skirt on her. They'd have like extra skirts in the background. So at that point, you know, this one lady, you know, came in. She did the first time, okay, this was strange. Next time she came to the temple, she says, I'm ready. Put the skirt on me, right? So they would do that, right? So, you know, but Bhakta Alex was saying, he said, yeah, it's so nice, right, to actually to prepare, to take the time. Yes, it's cumbersome to sometimes take the dhoti, you have to iron it, you have to wash it, right? Sometimes you don't iron it, right? And then you put it on and you're afraid that it's going to fall off in the middle of the program, right? And like, what if everybody's going to laugh at you, you know? So there's that too. But look, we have a wonderful gift shop in the back, right, with tons of dhotis and saris and things that are there, and devotees would be happy to help you out, right, or to you know. And I know at the temple, I would feel almost like naked, like I'm not wearing, you know, my cloth, right, that I need to wear and be able to do. So some practical points. I thought we'd take this chance, right? Because again, there's a lot of new people that are coming to the temple, right? And there are a lot of new customs that you can see that maybe you're not familiar with, right? Or someone's telling you something and somebody's telling you something else. But I thought that I would just address some of them, and if you would like to add on, right? Maybe some of the senior Vaishnavas, maybe Kamala, Prabhu, Mother Kundalata, right? Or some of the devotees would like to also say something, feel free to do so. But so as soon as we enter into the temple, right, we take off our shoes. Right? Generally, the custom is that when we come into the temple, we should offer our obeisances or respects to the Vaishnavas in the temple. Right? So sometimes you'll see devotees come, especially if you have somebody that is a senior Vaishnava, right? You should offer respects. So dandavats, right, on the ground like this. Except, however, if the deity curtains are open, right? So because the Lord is present, and He, usually when you come and you offer obeisances to somebody else, sometimes your feet are facing the deities, right? And it's not customary or proper to necessarily do it in front of the deities. If that's the case, you could just offer pranams with your hands. And Kamala Prabhu did this when he came in. He said, Vansha kalpatarubhya kripa sindhubhya vacha patinam pavani vaishnavi namo namaha. This is what we say, when you see the devotees when we bow, right, in front of them. And so once you do that, generally, it's good to go, there's a little sink in the back, and you can wash your hands, right? We're thinking about getting a little spray bottle, right, that we could maybe put out there so you could spray on your hands. Because when you take your shoes off, right, you're touching your feet, right? And the feet are considered, when you're touching the feet, the ground, it's unclean, right? So when you come into the temple, most of you, I'm sure you know this, it's a traditional thing in India, you do this. So you can go and quickly rinse your hands, wash your hands. And then you can offer your respects to the lordships, right? You see, first Srila Prabhupada, he's the spiritual master, so devotees will come in front of Srila Prabhupada and offer obeisances. And then offer obeisances to Shri Gaura, the deity, right? So at the same time when you're offering your obeisances to the deity, right, to the installed deity, you could also offer respects to the deity of Lord Krishna here, right? There's this on the side. It's not an installed deity, but devotees do that as well. So you can do it simultaneously when you do that. Now also another customary thing is sometimes when there's Kirtan happening and all the devotees are present, right? Sometimes somebody will be like, okay, I've arrived right now. Now I would like to offer my respects to the deities, and all the Matajis have to move back, right? All the Prabhus have to move back because somebody is offering their obeisances in front, right? Doing those things, right? So in this circumstance, the etiquette would be that, well, we can see that we arrived a little late to the temple, right, today. So, we can offer within our heart these respects, or from a distance, to Srila Prabhupada. It's still very important that we do this respect, right, internally, that we've practiced this Vaishnava etiquette, but we can do it in such a way that we're not interfering in the service and the devotion of the other devotees that are in the temple, right? Because this is our lineage, it's dasa, 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 dasa. We're going to be serving the Vaishnavas, the devotees of the devotees, so on and so forth. So, that's one of those things. Let's see, what else did I have here? Kitchen seva, right? So that's a big one. Devotees who are in the kitchen. The kitchen is considered like the altar, right? So cooking generally, when we cook on the altar, when we go on the altar, we should have devotees who are second initiated, right? So there's the Harinam, initiation, and there's the Brahminical initiation. Which means at this point you can go on the altar, right, and you serve the deities, you can make offerings and do those things. So technically the standards are in ISKCON that the kitchen is an extension of the altar, right? So ideally, the ideal standard is that devotees who are cooking in the kitchen should have second initiation. Now sometimes some emergency measures can be taken, right? Because sometimes, we don't have initiated devotees, or we have the first initiated devotees, but this person is in the line waiting for second initiation and they're ready, and it's an emergency. So sometimes you'll see, okay, somebody's in the kitchen helping and doing something, but that should not be the standard, right? So this is something that we should try to, again, we're trying to bring ourselves to the topmost standard. And that's the real thing, right? That's what Prabhupada wanted us to have, this real experience. So if you're thinking, it's like, oh, shoot, I really want to work in the kitchen, right? I really want to do this. This is discriminatory against me, I should be able to have access to everything that everybody has. Take this as an opportunity and think, great, I'm going to take Brahminical initiation, right? I'm going to chant 16 rounds. I'm going to find a spiritual master because I really would like to do this service, right? This is something that's close within my heart. And this is something that all the devotees are very happy, right? To encourage, to help, to assist. This is part of our lineage. Now another thing, also practical thing, when we see that we have, when we offer the lamp, right, is being offered on the altar, and the flower. So generally, the first item that comes off the altar is the incense, and so we have an incense holder that's there on the side. And the devotees who are offering these items to other devotees when in the temple, the ideal situation is that those devotees should be wearing Vaishnava attire, right? Now you don't have to necessarily be second initiated or first initiated to do that, but there should be minimal tilak, right, should be there, right, which is the symbol, and Vaishnava attire, right? And then when we start, once the incense is put in the rice, the second item that comes off the altar is the diya, which is the fire, right? And so we have a tray, actually. I know for quite a while now, we started kind of taking the lamp off of the altar, and then after it's offered to Srila Prabhupada, we go around to the devotees in the temple. But really what we should do is put that, once we offer the diya to Srila Prabhupada, we should put it back on the tray, and then take the tray, and go around with the tray, right, and offer either to Prabhus or Mataji's the tray. And that tray is an opportunity for devotees to put some Lakshmi, right, to make an offering, right, to make a donation. And I remember growing up, right, when I would come, right, back when they used to have cash was a thing, right, you would come and there was like $5 bills, $10 bills, $20, it was full, right, and then once it was collected, right, just you go in church, they have a collection plate, this was put in front of Shishigor Nitai, right, this plate, right, so you're offering directly in front of their lordships. And then after you have the water, right? So there's that was being offered, and so on and so forth. But those are some standards, right? So ideal standards that we should try to bring ourselves up to. Same thing with prasadam, right? When we're serving prasadam in the back, I remember growing up, right? The standards were serving prasadam had to be full, dressed in white, or sari, tilak, and all of those things, right? So minimally, you should have tilak when we come and do that. And also, if you don't happen to have tilak and you would like to, again, participate in some of those services, we have a mirror, we have some tilak downstairs. You can ask one of us to come and help you if you don't know how to put it on. We'd be happy to do that with you, right? So again, the purpose behind Vaishnava etiquette is to help us become closer with one another and closer with the Lord, right, and the devotees, right? It's giving us, the most highest form of respect that we can practice together in the association of devotees. And we have these examples, again, Srila Prabhupada is a shining example, Narottam Das Thakur, Sanatan Goswami, right? So many examples, Lord Shiva, right? He was showing by his example, right? And this protects our relationships with one another. This is a great protection, right? We also see we have ladies on one side, gentlemen on the other side. We understand, we just read in the purport, these forces of nature, they're very strong, And although we may think that we have some kind of determination, right? I remember Prabhupada once said, the difference between, you and me, he was talking between the devotees, right? Is, that I'm afraid of Maya, right? And you're not, right? Prabhupada was saying this, I'm afraid of Maya, right? It's very good to have that fear, to have that humility, right? That comes from a place of humility. Who am I to be able to be all-powerful, right? And not have to abide by any rules and regulations, right? Because I have a direct line with Krishna, right? It's the wrong temple for this, right? Becoming a servant, taking the humbler approach a little bit, right? Vaisheshika Prabhu used to always say, he says, my motto is, I live to be corrected, And it's so great, right? If you could feel this way, right? And you can have exchanges and you don't feel like, oh, I'm such a big person and whatnot. But, look for opportunities. You can ask, feel free to ask the Vaishnavas, what can I do? Right? I do that all the time. My father is correcting me regularly, right? Krshna Dulal, you should do this and that, And it's good. It's Krishna's mercy, right? We should take it as an encouragement, impetus. Okay, so I think we've spoken enough about this. We had some feedback at the beginning of the class here, and perhaps if the devotees would like to discuss further, we can do it afterwards. But Sahib Prabhu has something he would like to share beforehand. Sahib Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful class and sharing the Vaishnava etiquettes. What I would like to say about this verse is for the sense gratification. So these senses we got, like eyes, we have to see Krishna. We got the legs. This is to go to the temple. We got the hands. This is for the making the garlands. And Ahar Nidra Bhay Mathun. These eating, mating, defending, these things like animals also do, but we have a higher consciousness. So the purpose of life is to know about ourselves, like the sense self-realization. Shankaracharya said, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam Moolmati. Like, he's saying that say the Lord's name again and again. And even in the Bhagavatam Canto 3, Lord Kapil Dev said to Mata Devhuti, when a kid is in the womb of her mother, he said to Krishna that when I will come outside, I will say your name and pray to you. But he comes in with the mode of Maya, and then he forgets everything. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita chapter, Ananya Chintayanto Mam Ye Pariyupasate Nitya Yukta Nam Yoga Kshema Mahavayam. When you do my service with full devotion, whatever you have, I will take care of that. And whatever you need, I will give it to you. So these senses we have, if we don't use it for proper purpose, person can get a paralyzed also, right? So Krishna can take their energy for the senses as well. So we don't need to use that for the sense gratification. We have been doing that for 8.4 million years. We finally got this human body. After doing all that, so the real purpose of life is to know about ourselves, self-realization, who we are, where we're coming from, why there's so much suffering in the world. We can't find happiness in this world. There is only one thing, happiness, that we can take the Lord's name. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Dukhalyam Shashvatam. We can't have any happiness in this world, but there's only one good thing, we can chant the holy name. So this is just my reflection.
Jaya, thank you. So let's chant the holy name, shall we? Kamala, Jaya.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Jai Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Rama. One more time. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Shri Gauranta ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaura Premanande.
Hare Krishna, thank you all so very much for participating so enthusiastically. So the curtains will remain open for a few minutes if you'd like to come and say some prayers to the lordships. Get a few minutes of darshan, feel free to do so before the curtains close, and prasadam will be served. Yes, Gaura Purnima, right? So this appearance of Lord Chaitanya is happening next week. So So next Monday, we plan to have a program, and actually it'll be extended because we're going to do kind of like a Sunday, Monday thing too, right? Because it's so close to that. So we'll start celebrating next Sunday. And I think some thought was to maybe come also a little bit earlier and have some Kirtan on the Sunday too, and then do something on Monday. We'll have also an Abhishek, which is going to be a bathing ceremony, right? The lordships. Do you have the time? Okay, 5:30. We know it's a working day, so it's hard for everybody to come, but we're thinking 5:30 we'll begin. And the program will last maybe about 2.5 hours. Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Which is actually